Good morning, everybody. For those joining us for the first time, welcome to Feedback Friday. This is where Tim, Katie, and I talk about portfolios, resumes, and whatever design asset that you wish to present today. What we do is we take a look at your links, we invite you up on the stage, and then we learn more about you, some context about you, what your goals are, and find if we can iterate some whatever design asset you're attempting to share with us, see if we can make it better in some way, and do a little revision. That's the goal. Note that everything is currently being streamed live on YouTube. I'll put a link back in the chat if anybody feels like subscribing. The caveat there being that everything we talk about today is streamed to the greater world and recorded to the greater world. So if your resume, for example, has your phone number on it, you may want to censor some of that before we take a look at it. And we'll keep an eye out for that kind of stuff before we get to it. Hopefully. We haven't had any dramatic incidents yet. Could be today. Tim?
There's always a first.
Anything I'm forgetting about mentioning?
Happy New Year, guys. Just a quick reminder, our goal today is to help you, right? That's our goal, right? Is we want to provide feedback on whether it's your portfolio, your resume, maybe just a little about your hiring journey. And to that end, we may ask you lots of context, we may ask you lots of questions, but our goal is never to hurt, never to offend. And sometimes there's this idea of like using a roast. We are not going to roast you. That is not our goal today. We want to be collaborative. We want to brainstorm with you. We want to think with you. And to that end, we may ask you lots of questions, but we hope that those will not come across as a little bit too drilling and that you'll feel comfortable sharing with us. And if ever a moment comes where you feel otherwise, just let us know in the chat. And that way we can dial in and scale for you. But let us get started. Our very first person for Feedback Friday today looks like it will be Nelly R. I recognize Nelly. Nelly, I'm going to invite you to the stage, and then if you'll go ahead and give us a quick intro about who you are and what you're up to.
Hi, hello. Happy Friday. Great to be back again. Like for those who didn't know, it's my second time like portfolio reviewing. I implemented the feedback and came back for like double feedback. So I have 4 years of experience in mixed graphic UI UX design. And this spring I graduate, and my goal is to land a job since I already have experience building platforms, websites across different industries like SaaS, enterprise, B2B, and like different models of business. So I'm trying to get into big companies, like recognizable companies. That's my biggest goal and challenge. Um, yes. So as about my portfolio, what I was concentrating on um, is revising cases. Last time, my main case was too long, and the story like was kind of lost in all the details. So I broke it into two parts and added one more AI chatbot case. So yeah, I previously also got feedback that I have like messed up CEO. I didn't fix it. Sorry, but I'll do it one day. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And then can you remind me quickly who your target audience is going to be? These are the people who you either want to maybe hire you full time, part time, if there's industry specifics. Um, if you can share that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's mainly for recruiters and hiring managers and potential like team members. I'm trying to get hired full time. I don't really have like industry preference.
Okay. 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 Well, then let's dive in. Now, Nate, do you remember where we left off with Nelly last time?
No, but Nelly, you did just mention it sounded like you had done some effort. You did I hear that you took a case study and broke it up into two?
Yes, so on previous session there was the first, my biggest case. I worked in a company for 2 years, data encryption company, and I did a lot of stuff for them, but like it was too much for one case, and I broke it into two parts. One for the platform and one for the website. And I think the platform is so far my strongest case. So it's on the first place, and like the website is in the third place. And on the second place, I put AI chatbot experience for mobile mostly. I think it's good to have some kind of AI implemented um, project in current market. So I put it second.
Got it. Okay, cool. Is that where you want us to focus today? Is the first case study?
Yes, I think that would be the best.
Okay.
Perfect.
Nelly, we'll talk really quickly about making a compelling landing page, and then we will dive right in. I think Nate's going to take a quick peek at that. But just for everyone, so we see Nelly up here. We have a very nice use of white space. We have a kind of element that is her time brand together. We have visual interest here. We do have a little bit of information communicated about Nelly. Nelly said that she's not focusing on any specific industry, but Nelly, one way you could strengthen this is maybe including something up here that maybe differentiates you from other product designers and makes your skill set a little more apparent. Uh, However, getting into here, we have a little bit of statement. These are going to be difficult. I'm already struggling with these. The motion is so intense on this. I think it's triggered by hover, and it's also just ambiently. And so, because you have the dual states here of triggered on hover, but also running by itself, you can see it has like this jittery effect where it kind of gets lost in itself. And the motion is a little bit too fast and interesting to look at. It's a little bit disorienting. I'm not quite able to capture exactly what I'm looking at. I also am finding that maybe heading wise here, I'm not sure if the cryptocurrency platform appeals to the top or the bottom. So maybe if we add some space or something to kind of differentiate this label, whether it's going top or bottom, might help with a little bit of orientation here. It's also big. Where do you work with these animations though? Is this made in Jitter, or where did you do this animation?
Yeah, it's jitter.
We love Jitter. Jitter is so fun. Can you remind me really quickly what key changes you made across this case study?
Yeah, sure. So in this case study, I tried to focus on the platform itself and not mix it with branding and other assets and interfaces. I tried to kind of clear up the narration and define the goal, the to show the research and my thinking behind the process. So just basically simplifying the story.
I've been looking at this case study for a moment here. Remind me what level of UX design you're attempting to target in this next role of yours.
It's hard to say because there are not a lot of like junior and middle roles. So I would say middle most likely, since I
Okay.
already have some experience.
Yeah. So let me just start off with saying that this case study does a lot of things correctly. In regard to the ability to consume content from this case study, a lot of spectacular stuff going on. At the very top of the case study, you've got all of the housekeeping shenanigans that the recruiters are going to want to see. Those are like the project type, project timeline, your role, the team, just like the real high level housekeeping things. Your individual titles for each section are solid. We could potentially lean into more storytelling elements there. But overall, if we were to only read the titles of individual sections on your case study, I still get the feeling that a reader will still have an understanding of what you've attempted to accomplish in this case study. So, in regard to those who just skimmed the case study, which is the majority of people, you are still capturing their attention through your titling, which is awesome. A lot of cool UI things here as well, like the ability to scroll down a section here and then maintain the category that one is in off to the left side. That's a nice touch. There is if one's goal is targeting mid-level UX, there's a portion that I would want to focus on more in depth here. So Tim, if you scroll to the top, oh, well done, Tim. You're so far ahead of me. I want to take a look, scroll slightly down to the context and challenge. So the very first question I'm looking to have answered here is what's the problem you're trying to solve? And you've done that here. Navigation debt, safety anxiety, the goal. The question immediately after this that I look to get answered is how did you go about solving this problem? and then followed by how did you measure success that the problem was solved. So where my friction now is, immediately after this first problem section, we now scroll into navigation structure, reframing navigation around user intent. And this in my eyes, I perceive this as a solution to something. As in, you've already done a bunch of discovery and now here are the things that you're altering. The consequence with this is if I'm hiring for product designers, particularly mid-level or above, I don't really care about what the final outcome is, or sorry, what the final product is. I should say the final output. Don't care about the output as much as I care about your decision making along the way. I care much more about how you've broken down business problems, how you've chosen to navigate political structures, how you've taken individual pieces of a problem and then broken them into smaller pieces for prioritization. I care way more about that stuff. And I think that's missing so far. I think we jump right into what's the problem and then here's the solution. I don't care about the solution as much. I want to know about your thinking along the way. Let me pause there. How are you feeling about that? Do you feel like you've got some ability to go back and spend the majority of the content talking about how you diagnosed problems rather than what the final output looked like in solving them?
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And I think what I could do, so since it was a bigger case, um, I think I showed more like research and user research in website case, and I could like move it in this case since it's like more important. I think that would solve this like gap.
Let me ask you, I haven't gone through the content in depth. So I am, like in these calls, I have to focus on more skimming for ease of speed. When in mentioning that I don't perceive you have described your decision making, am I wrong about that? Do you think you've done that and maybe it's just my perception that's incorrect?
Um, you mean about the research, like in this case particularly?
Well, where my mind is at is it's possible what I've described is something you think you've already done. And if that's the case,
Oh.
then the problem is more on the storytelling than it is on your ability to describe the decision making that you've made.
Mhm. Oh no, I think I think I could definitely add more progress section. I just have it in different case, um, like the same company but different case. What I meant is I could use that research from that case and move it to this one because it's basically the same target audience and users, and I think it would fit here better since it's my main case.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you
So
on that.
if you go, yeah, if you go to Futrex, like at the very bottom, yeah, this case, I think I went more in depth here because in the beginning I thought it was a stronger case and it was like all mixed together. So you see, I have like more description about like my process and thinking. So yeah, I could definitely work on that more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I'll yes and Nate here, but I'll also yes and no Nate a little bit,
Ooh.
which is I think there's a lot of strength in having case studies that are not necessarily your full breakdown. Like I think there's a time and place for this. So you definitely need a full case study that talks about your reasoning. That's especially important for interviews and for when people are really hooked on your website. Like they're really thinking about you and they want to look at more of what you've done. But as far as like an introductory hook and like making sure people want to look at your stuff, having a shorter case study can eventually help with that. So I think that there is already a lot of value inside of this. The thing I'm looking for though is your storytelling is already uh, in a visual layout structure, very powerful, right? You have the good sections. You're balancing text very nicely with visual artifacts and features. You're highlighting and calling attention to certain things. People really struggle with making UI that showcases before and afters or even adds notations. I think you're doing a very good job of this. You're adding notations on your images over here. You're making it very clear what's happening. You're helping direct attention to where users should be looking, even with like you're adding boxes over here. One thing I would recommend doing is for each of these images, I would add the light box effect since you're building this inside of Framer. Framer has a lightbox effect now that lets users click on images and then it opens it in a zoomed in format. And so that will help people, especially with some of the smaller text to read here, right? If I'm looking
Mhm.
at professional limitations, I may not necessarily be able to read this super easily unless I click on it. And lightbox effect allows people to see that really easily to kind of look at that. So that's one thing I recommend with there. But I think the true thing is honestly maybe just what you're calling attention to. Like your title here does not really make clear the problem that you're trying to solve. I know Nate says that your problem is here in navigational debt, safety anxiety, and then creating a predictable platform. I would love to see that reflected in your titles here. I'd really love to see like power without clarity does not storytell hardly at all about your problem, especially if there's a context and challenge section. I would expect to see context and challenge, the challenge, problem, or context. Power without clarity just isn't really selling that. So I think you have a very weak opening here. And then you start getting into some of this. I think that's great. Um, and then I was even looking at the very end. Is this true that this platform that you did UX design and product work for was ranked #1 by ABI Research?
Yeah, I think I need to fix it. It's not regarding the platform itself, but the hardware, and the platform is kind of essential part of it to manage it. But the product itself was presented on this, was launched on this conference.
I think you could take elements of this recognition and incorporate it a little bit more, and maybe even up here, like Crypto Hub. You know,
I'm thinking
let's
a
get this out.
subtitle. I'm with Tim that it's an impactful statement that seems like it needs boasting. Tim, I'm contemplating if we retitle the case study to the benefit and then a subtitle of that award, whatever that verbiage was. How are you thinking about that?
That could work. I think a subtitle could be effective for it, but I'd be looking for something that kind of calls it out. Give it that label. Lean into that award if you have it.
Mhm.
Make this more compelling. And as we often say, it is awesome that you can talk about Crypto Hub a lot, but we have to remember that your portfolio is actually about you. It's about Nelly. And so I love to see what Nelly is able to do here, not just what Crypto Hub is doing. So, if you want to talk about like, solving a problem. So maybe it's like building or designing UX navigation for ABI's #1 award-winning, um, you know, enterprise. It's getting a little convoluted.
But the
Uh,
mindset is there.
cybersecurity layout, something, right? We lost our cursor somewhere.
Nelly, how you feeling about that so far? Is all that making sense?
Yeah, yeah, it helps. I'm just taking notes.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah,
Apart from
it
that,
is.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say a lot. So portfolios have to do two things, which is, well, because the goal of a portfolio is to tell a story. There's always a visual element to the story, and then there is a like the words and the copywriting part of the story. And I'm pretty comfortable saying you have mostly nailed your visual elements, like the visual layout, your structure for the most part is right on, right? Like you're not that's not lacking anywhere. And so it's clear you spent a lot of time in crafting here. The next part of it is just maybe elevating some of your actual words to tell a more opinionated story. Uh, and you make it when you have an opinion, you're able to very clearly corner, your value. And so if you can set up the value right away, right? If you're saying like power without clarity, or like you change this to a problem statement or something that is really anchoring the whole case study around a particular problem, whether that is navigation, safety, anxiety, but just making it very clear and opinionated up here, that gives me the lens to look at the whole case study through. And then I can see that Nelly has quickly identified here's a valuable problem, and Nelly is the best person to solve that valuable problem. And here's all of Nelly's proof that she did an incredible job, which, by the way, it sounds like you really did a great job. You even talk about your validation structure. which I think you could probably lean a little more into talking about like how you validated this. If you did that in your other case study, I might put a link for that here, right? If you like for people like Nate who are like, I want to see more about this. If you're like, I don't have time to talk about the whole user research part of this in this particular case study because I'm trying to solve a different problem with this case study, maybe I could put something that says like, read more about user research here. You could link out to your own case study so people who want to read that thought process can get there without having to dilute maybe your shorter, more impact focused case study.
Okay.
I think it's really good though. Honestly, Nate, like I feel like I haven't done enough to say, Nelly, you've done a really good job with this. It looks good. Some of the animations that I've said before, I think could tell a little bit of a longer story. Like this is nice that it has movement, but if I watch it, I'm not sure I'm ascertaining a lot of value directly from it. And then you follow it up with like this little mock-up. We love these mock-ups. They're very visual. They have like a nice little slant to them. They also do so little to storytell. And they're not very good at communicating like actual tangible value other than just vibes. If you already have this animation, I think this animation is a much stronger vehicle for telling that story. If you wanted to extend this animation sequence to include many more screens, I would suggest do that and then just don't even have this image on here. So just have the one visual artifact, which is your animated storytelling piece, your window here, and then you wouldn't even necessarily need this piece here. So you'd already be doing the work somewhere else.
I also remember you mentioned that my motion on landing page is kind of too much. Do you think I could put that mock-up as a main image here and just keep motion in the hero section of my case? So when they open up the case, they would see the motion and all this stuff. But like on landing page, that would be just a simple image just to show what I was working on.
Maybe that could work. Here's what I would say. If we have any motion designers who are in our chat right now, who are in the Discord, let us know what you think Nelly should do for this service. If we have motion designers who have an opinion. But Nelly, what I would say is that zoom effects are very difficult to get right because it creates like this in-out, like a seasick kind of feeling. And if you think about like when you're watching a movie, typically like a lot of the motions are either slow pans or kind of like side-to-side movement, kind of like imitating like human eyes and navigation, whereas zooming is not human natural. So there is something about elements like this that can often be off-putting or disjointing to people navigation-wise. And so you may, even like this, you see where this is like expanding kind of outwards. This is a nicer animation sequence versus this one, which is a pop-out. So you may want to consider like even just like maybe more side-to-side movement or kind of moving between things. I think it's okay to tell a little bit more of a story rather than just have zooming effects. Even here you have this one's moving side to side. I think that's okay. It's still going to be a little bit more interesting, but it's something.
Nelly, I think it looks great. And a lot of what Tim and I have talked about is closer toward optimization than it is dramatically affecting your portfolio. You've done a lot of good stuff already, and it's just polishing now. I think you've done a lot well.
Thank you.
Nelly, really appreciate you hanging out with us today. Good to talk with you again. Really appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you so much for the feedback. I'll work on that and have a good day.
Yeah, you as well.
All right.
Folks, I am lackluster on my list today. I've got the next portfolio up. It looks like a resume. I don't remember who the username is though. Hritika is the name on the resume. Let me scroll way up.
I think that's just the name of the person.
Yeah. Oh, and Hritika is the name of the username as well. Before you take a look at that, Tim, there is sensitive data on here. So let's pull them on stage and then see if we can validate they're okay sharing some of this.
I just invited him to the stage. Nelly, feel free to leave more pictures of your cat in the chat. I remember you had a picture of your cat last time.
Cat tax?
Well, you were chatting with, so cat tax, yeah, cat tax. Nelly, your stuff is so cool too. It's great. It's great.
Hritika, if you're out there, inviting you to the stage, there should be a button prompt on your side to
Is she
confirm.
out there? Oh, she's requesting to speak.
Oh,
Are you seeing it? There's not like a button to accept, so you just have to keep pressing invite to speak. Ah, it has happened. Welcome to the stage. Hello.
Sorry, I'm not used to the Discord platform a lot, so I'm getting used to it.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, so can you let us know a little bit? First of all, to answer Nate's question, there is maybe some sensitive information in your portfolio. Are you okay or your resume, if we open this up on the stream, are you okay with that?
I believe I did block out my phone and email, and only locations should be there now.
I'm
was there
seeing
something
a
more?
phone number on here.
Oh,
Tim,
that's
do you have a
strange,
second monitor
but
you're
I
able to
think
validate?
I'm okay with it.
I can open this. Let me go ahead and copy. See if we can open this in a new tab just to check. So it's opening up on Tiny Site. I am seeing I'm not seeing an email. I'm not seeing a phone. I'm not seeing a location either.
That's fascinating. Tim,
think
this
you're
is
good.
the second time where, for some reason, my browser has bypassed some of that censorship, and I don't have answers. But I'm glad it's working for you.
Yep,
Interesting.
there we go. At least at the top. Maybe it's in another location. I won't point out if I see it though. Okay. Well, can you also tell us how should we say your name? I'm really bad with names, but I will promise I'll try my best.
By the way, excuse me, I'm like getting over a cold, so I might cough a bit. But yeah, as for my name, throw the H out the window. Just treat it as Hritika.
Hritika.
Yes.
Hritika. Okay. Okay. Well, Hritika, if you could let us know a little bit about who you are, maybe some things about your industry, who your target audience would be, and then what your goal is.
Yes. So, hi, my name is Hritika. I pivoted into product design a little bit over a year ago. Before that, I was doing freelance graphic design and I actually studied animation slash like concept environment design. And the industries that I'm targeting, I think I might be a better fit for startups because most of my freelance work and the place where I currently work is a startup. And as for industries, I'm targeting more like fintech, health tech, or HR tech because, again, that's where most of my product design experience is. But ideally, I would like to get out of HR tech for my next role as someone who's starting off. And for things that, and for my goal regarding my resume review is I actually made a list of 5 things I would like to focus on, if that's okay. The first
Okay.
one is just picking which title to choose, emphasis and heaviness of my first role. How should I present my short stints, including some smaller education? And the last thing would be highlighting and bolding for formatting and hierarchy because it's not working. I feel my personal opinion.
Okay, so here what I caught was title, what title to present under. You're talking
Yes.
about how much emphasis to give to your first role.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard how to present short work.
Yes.
And then highlighting information architecture of your resume.
Yeah. Yes.
I too am missing the fifth one,
So
Tim.
I missed the fifth one, yeah. There's 4.
I think the fifth one is just I took like a couple courses which are just a couple months long, and I'm not sure if I should include those or not. One of them being like a psychology general course, and the second one was like a intro to product design that I took recently.
Okay.
Cool. Appreciate you coming with pointed questions. That narrows focus a lot.
Okay. Well then let's get into it. So I have to comment that when you are, is this tiny site hosting a PDF, or is this site the PDF by itself.
No, this is Tiny Site. I made this specifically for just sharing my resume. Usually I would just send a PDF, and it's
Okay.
usually one page, but you'll notice there's a second page with some extra details which I wouldn't normally include.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Cool. I'm on board with that.
The Tiny Host site, are you measuring the analytics on that link? Is that the goal?
No, I just created it to share
Yeah, I
the
think you're saying
resume right
for
now.
this. Yeah, for this particular stream. This is your
Oh,
custom
just for
resume,
today.
right?
Got it. Yeah.
Yes.
I am struggling to navigate it a bit. That might just be my browser, but I'm just going to download it and bypass Tiny Site.
Yeah. What I'm seeing here is we've got your name. We have, it looks like a couple of titles. We have your
Yeah.
portfolio, your LinkedIn, and then you typically have your email and your phone and your location. And then we have a skills section, your experience section, and then an education and awards section. So let's talk about Talk about the 2-page versus 1-page. Some people will argue that you should only have 1 page for your resume. This is true when your resume is printed, because it makes it a lot easier to keep track of 1 page versus 2 pages of your resume. So guaranteeing that your information kind of stays stuck together so it's not lost. In our digital era, 2-page as a resume is okay to include. It's okay to do that. And sometimes 2 pages will also give you a little bit more ability to storytell inside of your bullet points and kind of making things a little bit more driven towards your outcomes you're looking for and position yourself a little better. So for someone like you who's listing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 experiences here, and you have education with additional education and additional experiences, I would probably lean towards 2 pages. I think 2 pages is going to suit you a little bit better and will let you be a little more comprehensive in how what you talk about and kind of packing in the right forms for you. Structure, hierarchy. So going name, we typically recommend skills go at the very end, and columns can be very difficult for the ATS to parse. I would be really careful to not do columns like this. It's better to do paragraph, keyword, comma, second keyword, comma, third keyword, versus stacking them, which can cause issues when something's parsing. Outside of that, though, if I'm looking at all of your skills, we have UX design, design systems, wireflows, or user flows, wireframes, information. A lot of these are UX based, and you have UX based experience. A lot of places you also have graphic design. Do you know the difference between UX and product design for yourself?
So when someone explained those two to me, they specified it as UX is something more in terms of, the experience and accessibility, usability, versus product is a little bit more broad, where you're also incorporating like business. This not business decisions, but you're taking that into account when you make decisions, if that makes sense. That's my understanding of it.
Honestly, it's probably pretty good too. UX design takes the position that the end user is your most important person to focus on. And that if you improve life for your end user, you improve life for the business. A product designer says our most important end user is actually the business. How do I improve life for the business by improving life for the end users? And so it's just kind of changing who you're appealing to. Product designers and UX designers have many of the same activities, except that a product designer is a little bit more involved in maybe your business analytics and strategy. And you might prioritize what UX items to work on based on business needs and business outcomes, even though you're still working with users and stuff like that. The thing about product design is because product designers typically involve strategy, you typically need to reflect a little more strategy work on your business work and also measurements and analytics related to business. So for you to successfully be marketed as a product designer, you'll just need to have the ability to speak the words of product designer. If you want to put yourself for 2 different roles, I think it's okay to have 2 adjacent roles. I think three adjacent roles is probably a little bit stretching it, right? Where you might say like I'm a UI/graphic designer, right? Those are very similar, very related. You're a UX/product designer. That's still pretty close, pretty related. But to go UX, UI, and product designer, probably a little bit too much of a stretch. Nate, I think my opinion for
Sorry, please go ahead.
no, you go for it.
Usually, I do put myself as UX and product, but I had UI because I don't know, I didn't know what to choose.
I like where Tim's mindset is at on all of this. So UX, UI, product designer, we would argue that those are three separate job titles and only one should be chosen. Though you will often find UX slash UI, I would still argue against that. And if you're interested in that conversation, there is a rabbit hole of conversation there about why we would argue that those are two different things and should be marketed differently. There's also a conversation there about the market's perception on those things. All of that is fun to talk about if you're feeling bored. For your purposes today, would love to choose one. You're targeting fintech, health tech, and it sounds like you mentioned HR tech. Sounds like we're trying to avoid them moving forward. Love the target of health tech and fintech. So with them in mind, I would probably, with them in mind, disregarding your background, they will likely be more interested in product design. If we pull your background into play, looking at your resume, let me just straight up ask you: do you feel like you have a stronger positioning toward either UX or product, or to say that a different way, either toward the user goals or the business goals?
I would say, to be quite honest, unfortunately, I'm not sure because I'm only 1 year into the job and I'm in a bit of a tricky position where, by default, because I've been with the company the longest, I've kind of taken on a lot of responsibilities that include some business and PM work as well. So I haven't really
Ah,
had the
that was it.
chance to dig deep
Product designer.
and figure it out. Hey, there we go.
Product design sounds like the right position for you. By the way, I too am in fintech. I work at a Fortune 25 called Centene. Sorry, not fintech, health tech, the other one. I also a big fan of targeting fintech and health tech for upcoming recession purposes if you're in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your positioning here is solid strategizing. So, product designer. Let's move forward with that as being the focus. Let's move the skills section toward the bottom. Then the first most important thing on your resume will then be experience. That's what's typically most persuasive for any recruiter or hiring manager. We can talk
Mm-hmm.
about the structure of your bullets here in a second, but I want to circle back to the questions that you were wanting to focus on. And the second question I have written down is, should you focus on personal? And I'm not sure I understand what that means. You mind diving into more detail there?
Um, I think my second thing that I listed was in regards to my first experience that I've listed, where because that is my only UX product role, I'm trying to emphasize that
Ah,
and de emphasizing my previous graphic design roles. But I also feel like when I look at it, it's just so big and long that I don't want to read it.
nice. Position yourself toward product design will have an advantage here because then, yes, previous works that are adjacent to that of UX design or product design, they will potentially be a distraction from that of your positioning goals. However, product design,
Mm-hmm.
our main audience is, of course, the business. Therefore, we can now take your other job titles like graphic and motion designer, and now we can reword those bullets with the target of the business impact, not necessarily the tactics that you've achieved.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pause there because that's really easy to say on paper. Is that making sense so far? The ability to pivot your other works to targeting business impact rather than the things you had done.
I mean, so I would like an example, but the way that my mind's got it is when I show impact, it's how did I benefit the business? Kind of like maybe increasing, getting more attention to them or something.
Hell yeah.
That's how I'm interpreted
Yeah, take a
interpreting
look at
it.
your UX experience. I want to look at the fourth bullet point. This bullet point states enhance the usability to reduce unreported no-shows slash incomplete interviews by 98%. Now, we could finesse that bullet, but let's pause that conversation for a second.
Mm-hmm.
The motivation of that bullet point is spot on. Note that it doesn't describe like the things that you do as a UX designer. It describes the impact that you made to the business. So let's take that mindset, circle down to graphic slash motion designer. What are the business impacts and metrics that we can talk about, regardless of whether or not you're a graphic designer? Let's talk about those impact metrics and your other positions as well. all of that motivation is paramount to being a product designer in the eyes of a hiring manager and recruiter. How is that sounding so far? Is that making sense?
Yeah, when it is a little bit tricky. When I do read my bullet points, it is very much what I did over the impact that I had. Unfortunately, those projects were ones that didn't do well for one or the other reason. For example, um, I think they never shared the business impact from the things that I created, and most of it is something I had to assume. And it's a little bit tricky. Like, let's say for Up 5 Gaming, they got acquired, and I haven't been able to get in touch with them about anything that I did. And Youth Homelessness was another nonprofit organization, and now they're closed. So again, it's I have I have no clue. Like the tens of thousands is just some simple math that I did, kind of trying to figure out like, oh, if they told me that they posted in 10 buses, so it's like how many people is that reaching? I'm assuming.
Tim and
I think
I,
that's exactly that's what you got to do though, right? That's the estimation. So Nate, I think Nate was about to say that we talk about this with people and we often help them like with the predictive modeling for this. Business in general is all predictive modeling. It's just based on good information. So the better your information is, the better your modeling, the better your predictions are. For you though, I would say, part of changing us to a product designer mindset is learning to do this kind of stuff where you're figuring out what is the impact. For example, you just told us Up 5 Gaming got acquired, right? So you can even say like designed National Day holiday post event promotions to boost social media engagement, leading to eventual acquirement, right?
Oh.
So you can even like include that as your outcome. You can own part of that outcome. You won't need someone, and the hard problem is that in product design, other places, no one is going to tell you numbers. That's kind of our responsibility is to figure out what the numbers are. Our ability to do that accurately contributes to our value. So if you can show that you can do accurate estimations and estimagications, that's magically estimating your numbers here and helping to make a story that makes sense and is valid and grounded, that is part of being a product designer and making decisions. I'd also say if you can just speak to any part of the strategy, like you animated a 3-minute promotional video to boost product awareness for prospective clients. So like what I'm seeing here is that you made a decision, which was to animate a 3-minute promotional video. Did you have any part in deciding what the promotional video topic might be, or any part in deciding what some of those key frames are and what the story pieces are? If you did any research into understanding who the prospective clients are, if you think it had an effectiveness or what like the reach of that campaign was expected to be, you can talk about that more. Boosting product awareness, you can talk about what kinds of ways did they want to boost their product awareness? What kind of market were they fighting for? All of those things you can expand. Like there's a sermon in every single part of this, and just choosing which ones will support your narrative the most. Because the brilliant thing about resumes or portfolios is that it's the story that you're telling about yourself, and it's your story. And so tell me the story that is, don't lie, don't make up stuff, don't put like $10 million on here because you can. But if you tell me a story about how you are a UX and a product designer, and how when you were a graphic designer, you built the skills that have helped you become a product designer, that is powerful. That's helpful.
we could talk about the ability to utilize and reword these bullets to measure impact and talk about behavior change. We could talk about that for a long time. It's a deep subject. I want to make sure words. I want to make sure we complete your goals for this call. So let's move on to the third question you had, which was how to present short stints. And I see there are a couple on here. It looks like we've got UP5 gaming, which was 3 months long, and youth homelessness, which is a month long at most. And then Pasadena, your freelance at Pasadena was a few months. Oh no, that was 2 years. Never mind. Great. The quick answer is if the goal of that question is how do I present short work in a way that is still persuasive, then I don't think there is a good answer to that question. So then the question is, do we want to display it on the resume at all? If it's a month long, if I'm reading a resume and a person only has a month at a particular place, I don't put a lot of value in that. Typically, when it comes to like just getting into an organization, the learning curve is usually like 6 months for me. They're not even like full efficiency until 6 months later. So the value of a 1 month stint at an organization, I would argue, probably a distraction from the rest of the stuff on your resume and should be left off. Tim, any challenges with any of that mindset?
Uh, my mindset is if you've done work and you can storytell effectively, I would include it on your resume. When things are very short, though, like you have one that's just 1 month here, or if you have one that's another 1 month or 2 monther, I would bucket them. I would put them under groups, and that group lets you tell the story you want to tell. So you want to say like graphic designer freelance or graphic designer diverse, and you can talk about like did work for this number of companies. Here's a couple of my key outcomes, and then you have like a group of those things that tells an effective unit story versus if you look at here graphic designer up 5 gaming, this is like kind of just taking up space, doesn't really communicate any value or strategy yet.
Mm-hmm.
um, I wonder if it was for up 5 gaming or if it was just freelance and you were doing up 5 gaming as a contract,
Yeah,
etc.
a lot of
And you even have
when I worked as a graphic designer, it was mostly freelance. So that's why the stints are so short because it was just like, hey, we just need you to come on, create this one thing, and then that was kind of it.
yeah, so I might do like I might rename some of these to be a little more in that case, if you're if it's assuming it's under contract, right? If freelance for
Mm-hmm.
graphic designer, I might change that to like visual and interaction designer,
Mm-hmm.
which may support some of the product narratives and the outcomes that you're talking about more. And then you can talk about like as a visual and interaction designer for Sprouts for a couple of different clients, included creating like promotional videos that targeted like key constituents and client audiences to increase like product adoption, conversion, etc. Kind of talking about those things at large under the product umbrella is probably a stronger narrative than listing them all individually and speaking only a tiny bit to each one.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, I think yes. So basically, kind of like group them into one thing. Just say like diverse projects, and list and create like one bigger experience post instead of many smaller ones.
That'd be my feedback for you.
Got it.
Final question here in regard to highlighting and bolding for hierarchical needs. Would you mind giving me what about highlighting in the hierarchy do you think is currently holding you back?
My personal opinion is it looks messy. Like it's doesn't feel clean where I because there's like bolding on the left and there's bolding on the right and there's and a lot of purple. I feel like there could be a little less purple. My eyes are just going everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. In regard to like what things to bold, there are all kinds of like, ooh, I shouldn't say all kinds. When it comes to designed resumes, you are
Mhm.
correct. You are making the correct sacrifices in regard to the aesthetic of the thing. Far more important for the resume to be ATS legible than it is for it to be aesthetically pleasing. So, in regard to that scale, you're making the correct sacrifices here. So now the goal is like, how can we also make this parsable for human consumption? And yeah, we could play with some of the bolding there, but like overall, I don't. You're certainly not going to get to a point where it's ultra aesthetic for human eyes, but also ATS compatible in all the ways we want it to be. Tim challenged me on that. My argument is aesthetically questionable, but the correct sacrifices for all the benefits that the aesthetics currently have.
I would bold way less. Like I would not bold the dates. They're
Mhm.
already over here by themselves, right? You use bolding to create emphasis, and so creating this like dual emphasis of you bold, bold, bold is missing
Mhm.
the more powerful stuff. I wouldn't use color. It's not going to transfer well on print anyways, and it is very busy and noisy. So what I would likely recommend is bold your title. Don't
Mhm.
bold the company. Don't bold the date.
Okay.
But even all that said, just like Nate said, the greater crime here in terms of information architecture is going to really be the skill section, and that you have
Mhm.
multiple columns here. You have multiple, even like this kind of layout right here where it's all centerline column work. There's going to be probably some issues here, especially
Yeah.
using the pipes. I don't know if pipes are my favorite way to do this. I might just use commas or dashes.
Mhm.
Uh, Pipes don't always transfer well, but ATS systems are getting smarter. Hopefully, we hope. And then what I'd also say is something you mentioned, this because it's related to information architecture, is that you mentioned that this feels very long. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Go for like 5 bullets, but make
Mhm.
each bullet 2 lines, right? Make sure it's a
Okay.
packed. You want lots of information. Uh, Information density should be high too, right? So don't make it like super fluffy, means nothing sort of bullet.
Mhm.
It should be one that like is very clearly effective and powerful. Like something each bullet you could talk about in an interview at length about how it contributes to being a product designer. And that
Mhm.
takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. We totally hear you on that, and I know like that's a big ask, but that is the ask, is to make each of these more powerful, and to make each one more effective. So two, 3 to 6 bullet points maybe, which each of those being multiple lines should tell a much more powerful and effective story than, I think, is this 8 bullet points, 9, is this maybe 10 even, somewhere in that range. That's too many, and then two and one's way too little.
Mhm.
Definitely need to upgrade these to 3 to 5. You
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be my counsel regarding this as well.
Okay. And in regarding to kind of compressing that information, right now my bullets for the first role, they're kind of split into the first half trying to be about impact, and the second half being the general kind of like, oh, I did wireframes and prototypes. So would you recommend that like I try to combine them, because I know I need to include like keywords somehow someplace as well?
uh, I'd be curious to hear Nate's opinion on this, but what I do is, I would typically lead impact first.
Mhm.
So I'd say, 7 times efficiency improvement for internal teams, leading to XYZ revenue recovery,
Mhm.
and then like period, and then like end-to-end design for workflows utilizing AI for enhancements in efficacy or efficiency, however you want to talk about that at length. So I would pack your impact first, and then qualify that impact through your methodology and your
Okay.
strategy.
Okay, got it.
Let me yes and that really fast, and then I'm looking at the clock. We'll have to skedaddle off to the next one. But what Tim's describing here, I think, will go a long way toward bettering a resume in a way that is both human impressive, but also ATS consumable, with the benefit of being keyword centric. So, what Tim is describing, and I'm glad we're getting to this because, in regard to resumes, this is the most important thing to talk about, and we haven't talked about it yet. The content in your bullets is chaotic in the structure and formatting that it's utilizing. So, like, let's take a look at that second bullet, for example. Led end-to-end design for AI questionnaire workflows that improved efficiency by 7 times. Now, this bullet has most of the right stuff it needs to talk about. Tim and I like to talk about a what, how, why approach to things, and then we'll piggyback with a second actionable. So, what, how, why? What you did is potentially missing here. How you did it was by leading end-to-end design for AI questionnaire workflows, and then why you did it was to improve efficiency by 7%, or by 7 times, 700%. So there's the potential to add the what you did in there. And if you were to go through all your bullets and write a what, how, why approach to things, you would find that A, you could incorporate much more keywords, like in your skills section, you can incorporate those more into your bullets. And then B, you wouldn't need 10 bullets for UX for your first experience. You would then only need 5, but they would be lengthier in nature.
Yeah.
Let me pause there. Is that making sense so far, the what, how, why approach?
Yes. Yes, it does.
To throw one more curveball at you, the what, how, why approach is a really easy way to write bullets that is really hard to write a bad one, but it can be optimized by flipping the information. The hurdle is no one, like that second bullet point again, led end-to-end design for AI questionnaire workflows. No one cares that you did that so much. That's not a reason why people hire you, but they will hire you for improving efficiency by 7 times. So ideally, we'd
Mhm.
start the conversation with what's the most impressive thing, or in this case, improving efficiency by 7 times. So rather than a what, how, why approach, we'd swap the information and do a why, how, what approach. So instead, that bullet could say something like, improved efficiency by 7 times, led end-to-end design for AI questionnaire workflows by, and then whatever it is, the what that enabled you to accomplish that.
Okay.
Is that making sense? It's a lot to throw at you. Easy to say on paper, hard to write. Is that sounding okay?
Yes, it does. And I think it also solves another problem of using the same words to begin the sentence design,
It
length and tense.
100% does. Yeah, because you've probably heard the rhetoric that every bullet should start with a verb, an actionable verb of some kind. This
Yeah.
solves that problem because now you're starting with the impact of the business, and those actionable verbs are now in the middle of sentences, and they don't look fabricated anymore.
Yes.
Keep in mind though that a lot of times this impact led has better mileage for product design than UX design as well. So
Hmm.
just our caveat here, right? Is that a product design is someone expected to know and own their outcomes? UX design traditionally has not needed that. It's pushing in the industry for that a little bit more, which is why product designers on the rise is people saying we don't want UX, we want product design, even though they don't really know what they're saying or what they're asking for. It's a whole thing. Everything's soup. Everything is soup. Categories are fake. Normal soapbox rant from Tim. But just keeping that in mind, like if you know what title, everything hinges on your title and your target, right? And once you know your targets, you can then refine and niche into that area. But if you want to switch titles and stuff, you're going to need to change your strategy across your document. So just watch out for that.
Okay.
Hritika, pleasure talking with you today. Really appreciate you
Thank
hanging
you.
out the time with us. We threw a lot at you. I'm going to link the YouTube channel in the chat just in case you need it. You can take a look at
Mhm.
everything we've talked about again whenever you want.
Yes, sounds good. And thank you so much
Yeah, of
for
course. Happy to be
answering my
here.
laundry list of questions.
Thanks for
All
bringing one.
right. Tim, next on the list, we've got Halak, Halak, however one pronounces that.
All right, I'm inviting them to the stage. I'm going to go ahead and open their thing. If you'll go ahead and share quickly how, first of all, how we should say your name, and then I'll have some other questions for you. And I'm terrible with names, as I tell everyone. I will try my best.
I am Halak, which is like uh, luck and luck at the end. And I'm just coming back to you regarding the portfolio feedback that you guys shared on my previous one, which was on Notion. I have like recently graduated, and I'm looking forward to getting into product design and development. So you guys gave me feedback on my portfolio, and I worked on it, and now I have one on Framer, which I'd love to get some feedback on as well if you're just going through it, and if you can let me know what you think about it. And even if you can't go in much detail for the portfolio, I'd really appreciate if you can also, like, I guess, take a look at the resume. But again, if we have the time, that's completely fine. If not, if it's
I think we caught most of that. We're struggling a little bit with the quality of the mic, but we're gonna plow through. I'm hearing that you've got a new portfolio. We've taken a look at an old one. This is a new one, and you're looking for generalized feedback on the portfolio, and if we have time, potentially resume as well. Is that sounding right?
Yes, mostly generalized feedback. And if possible, maybe take a look at the case study because I took in what you guys had told me about how it should be structured and how to actually not make it just titles like problem, solution, and all to making it more like a story. So let me know how you think about it now.
Excellent. I don't know if you just shifted mics, but you sound 100 times better all of a sudden.
Okay. Can I really quickly hear from you your target audience, like who you want to get hired by, and what kind of role you're looking for?
Um, I'd say I'm looking for a role in UX design or product design more. because I enjoyed the research and the strategy side more than the UI, like the visual design. And I'm not the best when it comes to visual design. I definitely want to get better, but I know, like right now, my strengths would probably lie in the research and strategy work. So that's what I'm looking for, and I don't have a specific industry in my mind as such as health tech or fintech. So I'm pretty much just a graduate, so happy to explore any of them that might be open.
Okay, sounds good. And then just making sure you sent us the link to a particular case study for Get Ahead, which I'm assuming is the one you want us to focus on, versus your website overall and maybe this landing section. So we'll be focusing on this particular specific case study. Right, Nate, where
Yes.
should we start?
Yeah. Just focus on the get ahead one, and once you can go back, you can see the landing page overall, and let me know, I guess.
The Get Ahead website is currently the
Very cool. Okay. Yeah, Nate, where do you want to start with this? Where should we do like a case study recap? Should we just dive into here? Should we focus on some of the UI stuff? Where do you want to begin?
Well, I'm looking through the case study. I don't recall having gone through this case study before, which either means my memory is awful, could be the case, or the redesign has been significant enough that there's new stuff that we're looking at here.
It has been. It's a significant glow up. It was in a Notion
This was Notion
modal in the
before.
past.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, actually, this is the case study changed quite a bit. Like, I've changed the structure and I've added a few other steps that we did as a part of it as well. So, yeah, it's
Man,
gone
I
through a big change.
I am recalling this now. You last chatted with us, I want to say like a month ago when we looked through your Notion document, if not slightly more than a month ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool stuff. God, awesome that you're able to transition away from Notion and into your personal site here. Congratulations on that. Building a personal site is a huge friction point that is it's just one of those burdens that you have to accomplish. And you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
This looks great.
Thank you.
I don't remember last time if we had talked about storytelling, but I'm looking at your titles and you're rocking it.
In
I
some
s-
places,
Yeah,
yes.
Oh, there are other. So
yeah, you did mention about it.
I started by listening to students, but what seemed like a simple task quickly revealed deeper issues. Like the titles I'm reading so far are looking great.
Okay.
Very scannable. I like it. Okay. So we have to remember a case study. The purpose of a case study is to convince a reader that you have skills, experience, and proficiency in solving problems that are related to what they're looking at. And typically, someone will go from looking at your website to clicking on a case study because it appeals to them for some reason, whether that is it talks about strategy that's related to them, it's industry related, or it has some type of skill, proficiency that's talked about, where maybe there's an impact. But in general, what I am seeing is that the title of your case study for Get Ahead is, I think, the name of the product that you worked with.
Ah,
However, is not telling us a lot about the context of the problem or the impact that you're solving for, even though
Mm.
you have done a very good job of saying, here's the impact. So it is here. I think all the information you probably need is here. We're just missing inside of our title here. And so I would love to see maybe you explore some titles that are a little bit more
Mm.
focused on your strategy and your impact or what you did here for a product like Get Ahead, which then
Um,
contextualize this from just a
yeah.
phrase into a meaningful story arc that is the lens and the focus for the whole reading thing. I
Understood. Yeah.
also yeah I also do see, I know this is probably based on your template, but I do see you have some focus areas over here on the left-hand side. And just as a reminder for everyone, when you have information that's split across a web page that's that large, oftentimes it is just lost. So if you are depending on any of this as important context for this case study, just keep in mind that it is probably not getting read or not getting the
Yeah.
attention, or worst case scenario, is people read this get ahead thing, their eyes move over here to read this, and then they never read this paragraph. So you do have competing priorities here. Just kind of watch out for that.
Understood.
Keep in
Yeah.
mind, you may, if one of these is more important to you than the other, I would make sure that you choose to emphasize that particular one, and then make sure that they're not mutually exclusive to people. Um,
Mhm.
I love this idea
The Get Ahead website.
of having something that walks through and kind of talks about this. Very
Yeah.
cool. It is a little bit kind of tucked away over here, though. Whereas you have like impact left side, get ahead left orientation, kind of close to our middle. We have a kind of a slight middle preference here, and this is like almost fully right aligned. I would
Yeah.
love if you want to lean on this idea, which is such a cool idea. More people should do stuff like this. Makes you feel real. I would either, center align it for this content right here, maybe left align it for the content so it has like a true center, right? So you have figured out your
Hmm.
breakpoints is like truly in the center, or left align it over here, but like actually, oh, actually left align it though, so it looks like it's in line with this impact section and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be
Makes sense.
my suggestion for you, and maybe include like a transcript button. Include your transcript here so people could
Yeah.
read your walkthrough of it.
I was thinking, is the transcript useful again in terms of accessibility? When I was looking at it, I thought yes, the transcript is quite useful. But otherwise, because the content is already there, I was thinking, is the transcript going to make it even more difficult to understand what is going through, or would that make it uh, actually helpful?
I think a transcript will be helpful because if someone like me is hunting for a very particular section of your website, they can search the transcript to hear your thoughts explaining certain parts of this. Not everyone will
Hmm.
want to listen to this, but your second commentary on your own commentary may prove useful. That might be a little bit convoluted, though. Maybe Nate will have a different opinion from me, but I would recommend having it. I wouldn't put this transcript like open by default. I'd hide it maybe under an accordion or something,
Hmm.
so it's not like immediately open
The
right
Get
in the
Ahead
way, but I'd
website
have
is currently
access
the
to
fourth most
like a
visited.
little way
The
to
Get
get
Ahead,
it, or maybe
the,
like it opens in
Get
a separate
Ahead
tab or
web,
something,
the Get
something that
Ahead
just lets
website,
people look
the
at
Get
a
Ahead
transcript
website.
for audio, since not everyone will want to listen to it. I could be reaching on that one
Got
though.
it. Yeah.
I don't have a strong opinion on this one. To me, it seems like what problem is the transcript solving? And if we ignore accessibility compliance for a moment there, like I don't know that there's a strong argument for your requirement to adhere to WCAG compliancy. Don't roast me in the chat on that one. I have deeper thoughts about all of that. But I'm trying to think what problem the transcript would solve. I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Okay.
I've been scanning through the case study here, and it feels very much like we're at a polished stage. Everything you're doing here, I think, is solid. Like there are some the graphics are presenting data. There's potentially an argument to make the graphics more aesthetic. They feel real data heavy, which is fine. But uh, like it's like you're expressing the correct communication, I think, in the correct times, and now it's just refinement on making things look elegant. I don't know that I have a whole lot of feedback in regard to dramatic alterations that were potentially missing. If
Yeah.
there's one thing that like could potentially be a low-hanging fruit, the first question with every case study I look at is what's the problem you're trying to solve? And you have this section. You currently have the project brief here, and the statement is we appear to be we asked to take on what appear to be a clearly defined task, content migration. The friction is that it's just slightly hard to find in the sense that like, oh, the rest of this case study I'm
Hmm.
reading through is solving content migration. So if there was like
Mm-hmm.
a section right above project brief that was like the goal, trying to migrate from X to Y, like that would help me understand the rest of the context more quickly. But
Yeah.
it
Makes
feels like a
sense.
nitpick. It feels like a real small thing. I could also just read the paragraph. Tim, I
Got it.
don't know
No,
that I
that
have.
also helps. It kind of gives me an idea of where you're looking. That small paragraph, while it's there at the top, maybe it's quite easily ignored, maybe by people. And people will jump onto looking at the impact, which is, of course, will grab the attention. So I do see a point in not understanding or not being able to communicate the context and the problem we're solving, I guess.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning the impact because I love that you have impact here. We can finesse the visualization of that as well. Like, for example, you've got 70
Yeah.
to 385. Very cool thing to say, harder to parse than saying something like 380% improvement or whatever that number is, whatever that math is.
Mm.
So just the percentage improvement, way easier to consume. The fourth is arguably an impact. Like I don't know what it was before, so it's hard to tell what that context is. So it could be a cool thing, but
Mm.
like you the mindset is there. Now it's just finessing the numbers to be slightly more consumable. But I love that you've got the
Mm.
section.
Yeah. After listening to you guys last time when you mentioned how it's really just about the recruiters actually understanding what the impact they will be able to get if they hire me as a designer, and how we should actually focus on the impact. Like, did you increase engagement or did you change the frictions within the system that was already there? And that's more important, so they know that if they're hiring for the right someone who knows how to solve the problems they have. So that's what I was like trying to get there.
Love the mindset.
I have an opinion that I want to share. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of problem statements that establish a who, a what, and a why. And so I'm a big fan of a problem statement that says something like who, get ahead, and then they needed help, whatever, however you want to wordsmith this. They needed something
Mm-hmm.
though from you, and they needed content migration. And this positions content migration as the lens of things. And then you're talking
Yeah.
about why to expand their reach or something of their nature, right? So this will show that you're
Mm.
aware of the full context. And this really quickly gives people the full context of this is a real person who has this particular need, which sounds familiar, right? If I was a company, I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
my company needs content migration help. And then if you're going to say, I understand why they needed this, that also helps. It makes my confidence in you grow. Like if you're saying like, get ahead need help with their content migration to help students find their information, right? Or
Mm,
and that's probably a little too broad. I would go ahead and change that to something more product speaky.
I like
That's
this
a real
though.
word,
Mm.
right? Something to this nature that really makes this feel a little bit more grounded. And then you spend this paragraph kind of outlining this and talk about this in depth. I take issue though whenever I read paragraph. This is a me problem. So maybe not necessarily you problem, but my opinion here. I do take issue though when people say like, "Oh, but this problem turned out to be really big," because I think part of the hope of this case study is that you show how big the problem is, and that you are the one who's making these big problems simpler and easier to work with. And that's like the magic wand that you get to wave as a product or UX designer. Is that you get to take these huge problems and kind of simplify them and make them understandable and workable. And so I'd almost prefer, not that you have to like hide this, or say like they asked us to do a really simple thing and suddenly this was like 100 more hours than it ever was planned to be. I think what will probably suit you if you incorporate this context as part of your process that makes you unique and powerful as a designer. So if you're able to say like, instead of oh, but this caught us by surprise because it became really big, you might say like my professional opinion or my audit or my process or something of that nature help them understand all the steps that were going to be necessary. So like you can say like our strategy planning session together showed or outlined these core fundamental problems, and then explaining what those problems are, because this image seems like it would speak to whatever you're saying here, right? It seems like this simple task quickly revealed deeper issues. And then you have a picture and there's red and there's green, but I don't understand what this image is telling me. And so if you are going to make a statement
Mm.
like this, you'll need to qualify it with another paragraph or something that talks about what exactly these issues are, or you need to make sure that this um, statement is like its own section. But either way, I think that if you can take this information, wrap it somewhere else to outline what you want to solve for, you're essentially giving yourself two problem statements. And that is conflicting for the narrative that you want to tell. You need one problem statement. And you should make sure it's a very clear
Mm.
problem statement, and then use the paragraph to boost and quantify that problem statement. And then as you tell the story, you answer all the problems that are related to your problem statement.
Got it.
Questions, thoughts? Maybe that was a hot take. How are you feeling so far?
I like how you mentioned about it actually. This was a project that, yes, it started off pretty simple, but we started noticing changes and noticed the bigger problem around it. And I do want to lean and highlight that. That's why even in the focus area, I want to emphasize that this was very much about UX strategy and work around that. So I guess maybe emphasizing that in the project brief and like when I'm mentioning the problem itself, I think that would be a good idea. Just trying to highlight that even more.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, I like it's kind of one of those things of you want to be careful to not give other people sticker shock, right? Like if I went to a project manager and I was like, I know how to do UX design, but by the way, it surprised me one time when we were doing UX design and it became a full scale project. That is like a nightmare for like a project manager to have to hear, because I think the inherent bias is that every project is way more complicated than it sounds like it's going to be. And it's part of our job as professionals to help manage that complexity. And not that we have to like gaslight people and say like, yeah, it was actually really simple. I just had to do, this extra 500 steps to make sure things worked out. And you should absolutely be able to like talk about your thing and the struggles and the process that you had to go through. I would just also make sure to tell it in a way that gives you power rather than making it sound like you're a victim of the project going haywire.
Hmm. Got it.
You know, you should be
Maybe
you
I
should be the one in
can,
control.
yeah, I can leverage the idea that this was a very complex problem that we broke down and were able to deliver the results kind of in a way.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's also a good way to like phrasing this like my auditor, my process or something, right? Where you're kind of wrapping this into this was part of the process, and like we expanded their scope was simple. We wanted to accomplish these things because this really is what made it matter. All that kind of
Mm.
stuff I think is important to that. So um, I think that's all. That's my quick take for you. Otherwise, I think you have a lot of the right things here. Good visual balance here. You're like Nate said, you're telling the story pretty well through your headings. I love the ownership that you're taking. I took the initiative. Um, do you talk about your team? I think it's okay to talk about a team. I also think it's okay for you
Yeah,
to
I
not talk about
think
your
I
team.
did. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Um, so
Maybe
you
that
may,
that has been I need to re-edit the website for 1 minute because apparently
you might,
they've cut down the section where I've like last at the end before the lessons learned. I've actually had like an entire paragraph about my team and the work and how we did it. And kind of like a thank you to everyone. But I guess I will need to update it again.
yeah.
Sometimes
I would
does this
also
buggy
love
stuff.
I'd love to see more keywords. Like I think right here you said I took the initiative to walk students through other websites. I'd love to see more industry specific words there. So like I interviewed students, right? If I'm a hiring
Yeah.
manager, I may not realize that you're telling me that you interviewed people. I may just be thinking you did a walkthrough. And I'm like, oh well, that's not the same thing as an interview. And you're like, no, that's actually an interview. That's a type of interview, right? It's
Yeah.
me leading user research, and then also saying I took the initiative. Um, can kind of be a little bit too like team projecty, and we love
Hmm.
a good team project. There's nothing wrong with a team project, but I'm not here to learn about your team. I'm here to learn about you, and so I want to learn about you. I want to learn about what you did, and so I'm assuming for each of these, you are the person who has ownership for this, and so you can build in this ownership. Like I interviewed students, and then
Hmm.
you just take ownership of it, just own it. So I think that would be that's valuable and important. So
Got it. Yep. I'll keep that in mind. But yes, this was really helpful. Like just getting the idea that at least it has improved since the Notion idea. the last portfolio and how it's doing decent good job in terms of storytelling and the titles and the context. I just need to polish this a little bit more in terms of highlighting the complexity of it and how I was able to own the process and deliver the results. So definitely will keep that in mind and trying to build that.
Very cool. Really appreciate
Absolutely.
you being able to chat with us today. And congratulations on graduating away from Notion. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And for people
Thank
who
you so
are
much.
using Notion, just know that there's nothing inherently wrong with Notion. It's all about your storytelling and your goals. And it's probably possible to tell a really good portfolio inside of Notion. And sometimes it just doesn't have the tools you want it to have. So we're not here to give everyone the feeling that like you have to use a certain platform to be successful. It's not just Framer. There's other good ones out there, but you should have control over your information. Tell a story effectively.
Oh, just before we end it, could you just go back and look at the landing page actually? The home page actually.
I
Tim, we'll have
think
to
there
make it
are
real
too
quick.
many comments for us to want to share here and talk
Okay, yeah,
about.
yeah, that's fine.
Ah,
That's fine. No, 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 it's okay. That's all right.
Okay,
I'm happy that you
very
could
cool.
give me feedback on this one at least.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see you back next week. We'll talk about landing page.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
next
Yep.
on the list, we've got Shibam. Shibam. However one says it. I don't know that they're still in the audience, but it's a resume if they're still around.
I'm looking. See Nelly. There they are. Okay. I'm inviting them to speak. Let me
Heck
go ahead
yeah.
and open this.
Well, it's a resume with data on there, with sensitive data.
Okay. So before I open this, let's hear a little bit about them. First of all, can you tell us how to say your name? And we'll do our best to say it.
Hey guys. It's Shibam.
Shibam.
Yeah, it's Shibam. Spell it like that. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm okay with the details that are on my resume.
It's
Can
got
see
a.
that.
I'm looking at a phone number and your email address. That's okay to share with the world.
Yeah, totally.
Perfect.
Right. All right. Well, Shibam, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and then maybe what some of your goals are?
Okay. So yeah, I'm Shibam. I'm basically from India, and yeah, I'm a visual designer with 4 years of experience now. I design for fintech majorly, like uh, but yeah, I also totally like doing motion graphics and all. So yeah, that's a addition to that. And apart from that, I'm also a sports person. Love, I play cricket for my state, and yeah, that's all about me. Nothing much.
Okay. So how long have you been a UX designer for?
It's been 4 years now.
Okay. And right now, are you looking for employment? Are you trying to find a new job? Are you working freelance?
Yeah, I was working, but I recently got laid off, honestly, and I'm looking for jobs currently. Yeah.
My heart goes with you, man. Layoffs are so hard, and it's unfair a lot of times, and it's difficult. Um, Anyone out there who's facing layoffs, we hurt alongside you, and hopefully you take some appropriate time to process and work through the feelings there. But today, let's get into this. Is there a particular type of company that you would like to get hired by? For example, some people want to get hired by startups. Some people want to go into corporate. Some people want to do fintech. Um, where do you think you are?
I think I've spent most of my time designing for fintech, so I have like more like expertise over there. So I think I can do a good job on fintech. Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, Nate, do you want to take head on this then?
Yeah.
As we get into his resume.
Shibam, I love looking at resumes like this because your mindset and intentionality here is clearly in the right place. There is so much low hanging fruit that we can talk about that's going to immediately benefit your resume in so many different ways. When Tim and I look at resumes, we typically have this outward in approach where we start with a high elevation and we like look at the page count, look at the order of information, and then we narrow in, look at the experience section, individual sections, and we narrow in further, look at the content within those sections. And the majority of the things I have to say are at that real high elevation, as in there are some general fundamental things here that I think we can iterate on to better this for all the different applications that you're going to be applying for. Let me ask you, are you currently applying for jobs?
Yeah, I'm applying for jobs. I mean, it's been like 15 days I got laid off, so it's very recent.
15 days ago. Okay. Yeah, real recent. Cool. As you're applying for jobs, I imagine you found the process that typically goes, you find a job description, you hit the apply button, it asks you to upload the resume, and it attempts to parse the rest of the application based on the content within your resume. Have you found that experience yet?
Right. Yeah, I did.
How has the output of that experience been? Are you finding that those systems are parsing the data correctly?
I mean, most of it, but if you talk about the projects that I have, the like contents from the projects, from my professional experience, it's lacking there a bit.
Interesting.
Apart from
Okay.
that, mostly it's lacking. Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about target audience for a second here. Most folk, like you've already got some basic understanding of target audience, typically being that of recruiters, hiring managers. There's that third party that's entered the ring, and that's the ATS being the applicant tracking system. And the ATS, I imagine as this mysterious black box that nobody knows fully how it works, how it understands data, how it parses data. Now, what's fascinating about ATS is that in the context of resumes, we typically refer to them as the machines that parse resumes and data, and then potentially filter and rank candidates based on skill set. But interestingly, ATSs have far more capability than that. Realistically, they are relationship management tools. Every time you apply for an organization, at least of a certain caliber, they will be utilizing an ATS in some fashion. And then the HR folk will utilize the ATS to say like, oh, I reached out to Shibam on this day. These are the conversations that we had. It organizes all of that relationship data. So now the question is, if an organization utilizes an ATS, how can we then build a resume to best be parsed by the ATS to present me in the best possible light? And with the introduction of ATSs come new strategies. And those new strategies are what is missing on your current format of resume. And there's all kinds of different directions we could talk about here. I want to first mention, there's so many things we can talk about. I think what might be more valuable is to point you in the direction of a resume creation tool that will format things best for ATSs. I'm going to paste one here in the chat. This isn't a particularly special resume creation tool. I just happen to have a link to a Reddit account that enables you to get a free pro account. So the idea is you sign up for Resi, you go to this Reddit page, you give them your username, and they will upgrade you to a free pro account. That's the only reason I really recommend it. But this is going to do a bunch of things for you that'll be helpful. One is it's going to reformat your resume to a shape that will be ATS friendly. Two, it's going to argue a lot of real basic fundamental things that Tim and I would potentially talk about. So like we could talk about the format of your bullets. It will talk about those. We could talk about the order of information. In this case, you're leading with profile education. It's going to argue those as well. So like in regard to catch-all stuff, the majority of value I think is probably starting there. Let me pause for a second there. Is all that making sense?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. If you were to hang up the phone call today, that's going to get you the majority of the way there. I'm thinking let's move on. Let's assume they do that and build out a resume. And now let's focus on like the other stuff, like the content of the thing. And we can talk about a little bit of theory if that works for you.
Let's do it.
I've been talking a bit. I have more to say, but did you want anything in particular you want to talk about?
I've got a couple of things that are probably worth content wise. So resumes are often parsed by ATS systems, and they are not necessarily the human side of your application. That's like your portfolio. Your portfolio is the human side of your application. So sometimes it's machines reading these. There's a such thing as a rich PDF versus a flat PDF. Rich PDF comes with embeds like this one does, where it has like your link embedded into it. Not all tools are created equal though, and not all tools can read these. And so it's good, just like with your LinkedIn here, to sometimes showcase the full link to these things. To that end, I probably recommend having your portfolio link exposed here, fully exposed, rather than just linked to portfolio. And then for your LinkedIn, there's actually a way to get a simplified uh, LinkedIn, what do you call it, website. So you go to your LinkedIn page, and then over here, there's this public profile URL button. If you click edit here, LinkedIn will allow you to choose right up here in this corner to edit what your public link to LinkedIn is. And you can just insert whatever you want there, and then this will make this link here. You can just come back and edit it, and it can be rather short with no weird letters, numbers, combination stuff that you may want. So you can make them a little bit simpler and easier for people to manually click and paste and just kind of look at. I do see a profile thing here, which I think is the same section as the summary section for a lot of people. We don't see summary sections perform very well on resumes. However, in your case, because you have only 2 experiences listed, a summary may still be a good choice for you. If you do a summary, just make sure it is about uniquely identifiable things that you have, and then about your skills and your value. So you'll need to wordsmith this pretty well for it to be effective. So right now we have UX designer, 4 years experience designing digital products across multiple domains, including FinTech, SaaS, media, etc. This is probably okay. It identifies who you are. Then I blend user research, design systems, best practices to craft products that work beautifully for everyone. This is this sounds AI written. It is generic. It is a little bit. This can apply to so many different designers, and does not really tell much about yourself or add a lot of value. Then you say, I thrive for improving user experience through data-driven decisions, etc. Um, so I think these 2 middle sentences don't add any unique value to, so I would probably remove them. So if you wanted to have a summary section, do something very quick, talk about your experience, your industries. I think targeting your industry is probably a good thing to do in your summary, and then talk about maybe some of your skills very briefly, but don't make that summary
Yeah.
section very long. And if you do want to include stuff in here, make sure it is very specific to you. Make this very like it's about you. It's about the stuff that you do specifically. So if you have like specific outcomes, for example, you might say like led user research for this size fintech company and reached this type of revenue goal through design system and accessibility best practices. Right. So now it's very targeted. It's a very good summary of like the kind of results and things that you drive outcome wise. We will talk about your professional experience in a moment. When it comes to education, you do not typically, I mean, I'm not sure what it's like in India. In the United States, though, there are laws to prevent people discriminating against you based on your age. And a lot of companies will attempt to figure out what your age is illegally based on the years and the dates that you were in college for. You do not need to
Hmm.
include the dates or the years that you were in college. Um, and you also don't even need to include a topic for what you did in college if you do not want to. However, because you're targeting fintech and you took economics, this may actually be a pretty good match for you. So maybe this will be good mileage. It's your choice. But just so you know, dates sometimes do not perform very well for education sections.
Real fast, on the
Additionally,
note of bias, you also are including a photo at the top of your resume. Now, for the folks in the chat, photos are interesting in regard to reviewing resumes because they're cultural dependent. So, for example, here in the States, we would argue against them, but there are portions of Europe and also portions of Asia where photos are the cultural norm. So, Shabam, you'll have to inform me in your neck of the woods, are photos on resumes the typical standardization of resume formatting?
I mean, uh, it is a good thing to debate it, but I don't think it's very much important. Uh, I just kept it because yeah, looked at some of the like resumes from my colleagues and all. They suggested me because I was not in touch with these things because I was employed for the last 4 years and I was not like looking for jobs actively and I was not up to date with the market. I mean the current scenario.
Got it.
So I
Okay.
think it's pretty much optional over here.
Uh, Excellent. Okay, cool. And I'm seeing some of that rhetoric mimicked in the chat as well. Tim and I would argue against photos with the idea that they will introduce bias without the benefit of really anything. Like there's no benefit that a photo can provide you. It's only disadvantages. So in the States, that's what we would argue. You'll have to take that rhetoric with a grain of salt given your cultural norms there, but we would argue against that as well on the note of bias. Tim, carry on.
Thanks for that context. Yeah, and just yes, ending. It's kind of like what is beautiful or pretty or nice looking varies between different people. And photos, there's like so much you can accidentally communicate without intending to because you're just not sure what people are like on the receiving side of that. And there's not a lot to anchor around it. So just I wouldn't say you need to remove it. I would say though that there's a case to be wary of adding them, and you should be intentional about it. Uh, Skills down here. So we do have skills listed. I think this is probably a fine list of skills, especially if some of these skills are talked about over here. And then you have your interests. I'm not sure an interest section is going to be high value for you, especially since the amount of content on your page suggests that a one-page resume is in your favor. Especially, I would not do a two-pager with blank space, right? I would do either two full pages or one full page. Because you do not necessarily have a ton of content to extend in this second page, I would probably remove interests and figure out how to move skills up here. Under languages, I would probably include languages under skills. However, I don't do international work, so I don't actually know if that is the requirement or the thing here. For certifications, personally as a UX designer, I do not see a lot of value in the UX design Google certificate. I think it's not very good. Uh, I don't know though if a hiring manager would have that context. But I would worry that if someone is saying, "Hey, I took the Google UX design certificate, that means I'm now ready to be a UX designer," I'd be very concerned about their level of competency. However, you took that certificate, you have projects that back you up. This experience is a much stronger measurement of your skills, experience level, and your abilities rather than certificate here. If you want to include this, include it under your education section. But otherwise, I wouldn't include it.
Noted.
That is a lot of talking from me. So, Nate, if you have anything you want to add there, how do you feel about that yourself?
I've got a
Shibam?
list of things
We
that I've
know.
written down. Shabam, how you doing so far? There's more to toss out there. Are you open to receiving more, or are you at a place where you're like, hey, let me just start with this Resi account and go from there?
I'm totally okay with that. I think I'm taking notes and this is gonna help me because, as I said, I'm totally out of this game from last like 3-4 years. So it's everything is helping me right now.
Cool. I'll chuck more at
Thank
you,
you.
and then you're always welcome to go back and watch a YouTube video to to remember all the stuff that we're throwing at you. We've talked about the photo.
Let's do it.
We've talked about the order of information a little bit. So at the moment, if we were to copy and paste your resume into something like Notepad, the order of information starts with your personal description, followed by education, and then certificates, skills, languages, and that sort. Tim was describing that the experience will be the most persuasive, most impactful thing on your resume. We would want to start with that, with the assumption we're taking off the personal description. The amount of information, this is something Tim had also briefly talked about. So one of the consequences with ATSs is that there are new strategies for applying for jobs that are now programmatic. For the older folk on the call, back in the day, we used to have black hat SEO strategies. You want to appear on Google, you just infiltrate your entire website with all the keywords possible, and then bam, Google saw the keyword, you now appear high on Google. And of course, nowadays, that tactic doesn't work anymore. But ATSs, those tactics are kind of coming back into play. And one of the consequences of having a resume with few words is that you are being outbid by other resumes with larger words, more words. The ATS is going to take a look at the job description they're hiring for, And then they'll take a look at your resume, and then they'll try to find that Venn diagram of how many keywords match, what percentage of keywords are matching. So it's highly advantageous to jam your resume with as many words as possible in the current ATS strategy world out there. Now I say current because ATS is getting smarter. That strategy will likely phase out as time continues. But for the most part, what we're seeing nowadays is that longer resumes have better chances for ATSs. Keep that in mind as you're writing your resumes. The rating bars for languages. Tim, if you were to scroll down slightly, you'll see that the resume's got some rankings of things. No need to have the rankings for a couple of reasons. One is they're typically more found on that of novice level resumes, and we don't want to communicate that. But also, they're kind of just bad communication tools in regard to you are the person ranking them. And if we were to just remove the ranks, it looks more impressive. Like if we were to just say, yeah, I speak 5 languages, that is way more impressive than saying, I speak 2 languages really well and 3 other languages fine. Like this is an occasion where saying less has a better perception. The title sections, I've got written here, title sections could potentially use some industry standardization. So for example, the top of your resume, you've got professional experience. You may just want to cut that to experience. The goal there being that ATSs and other job systems that you apply for, like you apply for this job, it's got their own system of like parsing your resume. It's going to be looking for words like experience, not professional experience. So if you find that as you apply to jobs and your resume isn't being parsed perfectly, that will be one of the potential things you may want to adjust to better match. So just like the titles, just industry standardization, the more standard, the better. And then at the very top, you've got a link to the portfolio. One of those fun occasions where you kind of just want to spell out the portfolio. The consequences if somebody prints the portfolio, they prints your resume, they don't know where your portfolio is, right? So it's one of those occasions where it's better just to list out the whole URL. I don't know how many people are printing resumes anymore, but it's one of those low-hanging fruit things we can just accommodate really easily. Unless your portfolio link is like 80 characters long. Is that the case?
No. It's an ocean link, by the way. And there's a story behind it. I mean, all my projects are under NDA, right? So I cannot publish them online. So I put them on Notion doc.
Sure.
And then I got contacted by my previous manager, and I had to remove them. So
I understand.
Yeah.
Tim, did we already talk about? Did we already talk about removing the interests section?
I briefly mentioned it. So this is not your resume is a professional snapshot of who you are. Your portfolio can do a little bit more, but this resume is more about your professional interests and sides. Personal interests on a professional portfolio don't age well unless you are a very particular type of personality. Don't get me wrong, I've seen some resumes where there'll be like a little about section about the person and they might like curse or like say some like of their hot takes or their political opinions inside their resume. But these are typically people who have reputations that slightly precede them or are already like their own characters and it's part of like their individual brand. Unless these interests are part of a large individual brand that you are pushing that is effective in your networking or making yourself better known, I would recommend removing this intersection. I think you mentioned as well, like removing intersection, putting languages under your skills, moving your skills onto this page so you have a more full one pager. But the format of your resume probably needs to change anyways via Resonate. And then also certificates, putting that certificate under your education. You could call it education and certificates if you really wanted to, but probably just education.
Shibam, we've thrown a lot at you here. A lot of cool stuff though, and I love where your resume is going. This is just draft 1, and now we're looking for draft 2. In order, I would say your actionables are going to be chuck all of this at Resi, have it build a thing. It's going to present a new design of your resume. You're welcome to use it. That's what I use for mine. You're also welcome to ignore it and just use it as a drafting tool. And then the second actionable will be to really to hone in that experience section. That's going to be the majority of your resume should be the experience section. That's the section that everybody spends the most time working on, and yours is just short in comparison to competition applying for the same job. So actionable 1, get on Resi. Actionable 2, beef up the experience section. How you doing, man? How you feeling about all of that? You feel like you've got some actionable stuff to do?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's been like a reality check for me because I was applying with this resume and I was not getting any calls and all. I was just freaking out. So yeah, now I think it makes sense. I need to work on this more.
Yeah, the no calls will unfortunately continue. Tim and I are perceiving the industry, at least in the States, having about a success rate of 1%. So for every 100 applications, you're hoping to receive a callback. Those are the current stats that we're seeing.
And it may vary. I mean, like that's like a baseline, right? So that's not it's going to be a little bit different for some people. It could be much higher for others, depending on your market, your positioning and stuff. It is a very tough market. So our number one advice to everyone. So there's a topic about efficacy and efficiency of applications, right? You should, number one, make sure that you are applying to a lot of jobs. Talk to a lot of people. Okay. Don't be dissuaded. There are jobs out there. They exist. And there's people who need you. And you are a skilled professional who will benefit a lot of these companies. There's also a lot of candidates. And because of that, there is a lot of cross conversation and there's a lot of people everywhere. So if you imagine it's flooded, make sure that you spread yourself out, apply to lots of jobs, have lots of funnels, have lots of leads, and then uh, they have a referral link, Nate. You could be sharing the referral version of it and
Will
getting
I get
yourself some
money?
simplified
Will I get
ones.
funds if I have people sign up?
I actually don't know. I've never done it.
I pasted in the
But yes,
chat a
use
link.
job tools. Use job tools that help like track this. And that is also a big thing. Track the number of jobs you apply to. Make sure you're aware of the actual amount of jobs. And when you start getting into 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 applications, you should start to see what is your like funnel turnaround. Like if have you applied to 500 jobs and not a single one has replied to your requested interview, and then you start looking at some of these things and figuring out like, is the problem maybe my resume is not good when I'm applying? Maybe I'm applying to the wrong jobs. You can start figuring out what is your just figuring out. You can go through the funnel and kind of start to diagnose issues. But unfortunately, the rate that you'll need to apply to is very high because efficacy is quite low right now. You need to apply to a lot of jobs to get your headway. And that will not change, but we can help you be more effective by improving each step of the way. So even though you'll still have to apply to a lot of jobs, you can at least apply to slightly less amount of jobs, even though it's still a high level.
Yeah,
It's depressing, but it's true.
Yeah.
True.
Shibam, really appreciate you hanging out with us today and presenting your resume. It's scary to present things like that, and I love that you took the initiative to do that.
Yeah, I thought let's just get it checked because I'm in this group for, I mean, it's been like a year and I never like joined your like hangouts and all. But today I got a notification and yeah, it instantly like hit me like, why don't you get them to check the resume? And yes, I think it'll help. I'll definitely work on these things. And yeah, let's see next week.
Fantastic. Tim, I'm looking at the clock. We got 11 minutes left and a few more folk on the queue. We've got room for, I think, one more we can squeeze in there. Their name is, on my side, it's just the letter T, but it might be in streaming mode. Folks,
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, wow, you're already on the stage. Welcome.
Yep.
Got him. We're moving.
Yeah. Real fast. For the folks on the call who weren't able to get in the queue today, we do this every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Would love to have you again in the future. If you are dedicated to getting reviewed on Feedback Fridays, show up 5 minutes early, basically guarantees, add your link to the chat, basically guarantees that you get on the queue for that day. Would love to see you again in the future. And then if you want to take a look at our previous streams or get notified for when next streams are upcoming, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel where Tim and I will also be building content at some point. We'd love to talk with you in the future. T, hello, welcome. What shall we call you?
Thanks. My name is Hodo, or you can call me Albert.
I love Hodo. Is
Those are
that, am I
two
saying
very
that right?
different names.
Hodo?
Hodo, welcome. We appreciate having you here. If you'll go ahead and share, correct us if we say your name wrong too. You feel free to throw me under the bus as much as pleases you. Um, will you share a little bit about who you are, such as like
Sure.
what industry you're a part of? Um, hold on, I got some questions that will probably what market you're looking for, if you have any specialties that you're looking at, and then maybe some of your goals, like you're trying to get hired, are you trying to be discovered, networking, freelance, and who
Okay.
would you want to get hired by? Full time, enterprise,
Yeah.
so on.
So, I'm a UX designer with a technical background. Currently looking for full-time jobs, both in UX design and possibly UX engineering positions. I'm trying to focus a lot more on mobile interfaces right now, iOS to be precise. So I'm kind of like looking for general feedback as to what impressions a hiring manager might get about what type of designer this is, and what would make them want to maybe chat with me or push my portfolio to the side. And also kind of curious what your first impressions are, what's really stands out, and what's not really working well, and do my projects demonstrate like systems thinking and design, or do they just feel more like surface level UI? And also, since I'm like targeting iOS focused jobs, I do have web projects, but I haven't included them. And I was kind of curious, like, does adding those ones add to my case, or does it take away from my case?
Cool stuff. To answer that last question quickly, there is less benefit to having more case studies on one's portfolio. For the most part, recruiters and hiring managers are going to take a look at case study number one and not look at the rest. So then it's, well, what kind of case studies do I want to show and present to best position myself for those jobs? And you are doing the correct strategy there by focusing on only what sounds like mobile specific case studies. Is that sounding right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless the other case studies are more impactful or like more impressive than your target audience case studies, only lead with your target audience case studies.
Okay.
There's an asterisk there. You can have those case studies in your back pocket. So ideally, you have a job interview coming up, and then ideally you choose the case studies that best meets the expectations of that company or that industry. So that's where the back pocket case studies come into play. But hopefully, if your target audience, if your interviews with your target audience, you should be good to go.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm just taking down some notes.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And of course, this is being recorded as well.
All right, Nate, do you want to spend time on the landing, or do you want to get right into the first case study?
Well, he's looking for a general view, a general perception of all of this stuff. So I don't know that there's value in going in depth into a particular case study other than like what is our perception of him having skimmed through a case study. I think we start landing
So
page.
yeah, initial impression landing page. You told us a niche, which is mobile design, especially iOS design. I don't see that opinion reflected on your page, and I would love to see that. Like, I think if you're emphasizing your name in your portfolio, that's cool, right? I know who it is now, but maybe more important than your name here will be the niche and the problems that you solve. So I'd be looking for a little bit of information architecture shift that lets us focus on like iOS design and building or something of that nature that speaks to what problems you solve, the service that you provide essentially, so people know what they're getting into. That also, as we've kind of used this word before, kind of sets the tone and the pace for what I look at. Like if you say like iOS designer or something to that nature, then I know that, oh yeah, I'm looking at iOS design stuff. And I know that if I'm in the right niche, like if you're truly targeting people who want iOS design work, then I know that I'm on the right place. If I found someone who does iOS design, this is probably the person I'm looking for my team who wants an iOS designer for a project or something. Additionally, some of it is a little too lightweight. Now, this kind of falls under the problem of like uh, design and accessibility, and for some reason, super senior designers have really bad accessibility across their portfolios, but they're still wildly successful somehow. Is that a lightweight interface that has lots of like very faded attributes to it and stuff going on, and the super fine text, often in design communicates a sort of aesthetic and a vibe. That's okay for you to use that aesthetic and vibe. You just have to make sure your information is still parsable and understandable. And right now, AI systems and user experience design is really lost on the page and is not easy to comprehend or intake. And so, if this is the only anchor you're going for on your page that highlights who you are, I don't think this is effective enough for you. I'm also missing maybe a little bit more context that will make me feel compelled to want to reach and scroll and find out more about you. Nate, do you have any contrary opinions to that?
No, no, I love everything you're describing so far. I think this is great. I do want to talk about value prop while we're at the top there. So Tim mentioned that your header section doesn't emulate what you were describing in regard to target audience. By the way, love that you have a target audience, and the more target we can be, the better. I'm going to paste a graph into the chat here. And the idea is the more focused you can be with your target audience, the more effective and persuasive you are when you apply for jobs. So the idea here is you've given us a target audience of like iOS devices. I want to build mobile apps for iOS devices. That's already attempting to build a target audience. And the benefit of that is when those specific roles are, when those particular roles are available, you outbid the other competition when applying for those roles. There are fewer roles for you available to apply for, but when you can apply for them, you're far more persuasive. All the marketing books behind me would argue that that's the correct strategy to utilize. So the value prop typically describes who you are, what you do, but then also who you're targeting, and then the value you provide to that target audience. So if I were to throw a real rough one at you, you've got Hodo's design portfolio. Then I would say, I build iOS fintech apps for startups. Like I'm adding in a target audience here. And the more targeted you can be, the more effective and persuasive you'll be when applying for jobs. Now, I don't know if that, I'm making stuff up in regard to your target audience here, but that alone is going to communicate to recruiters and hiring managers, the people that you need to persuade the most, exactly if you're the kind of person they're looking for. Let me pause there. How's that sounding so far? Is the idea of like writing a value prop with a target audience in mind, is that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's also like a little bit in line with what I see with my Google Analytics.
How so?
Sorry, come again?
I think you said that's also in line what I'm seeing with my analytics. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because like I recently checked my analytics, and then I realized that I had a lot more people just coming to the landing page, but then uh, less people opening projects. So I was kind of curious, like, what that may have been, like, why would that happen? But this may be one specific reason. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of putting two and two together.
All right. Yeah. Hard to say with our current level of knowledge. It will be standard that your homepage will have the largest bounce rate as well as the most popularity in regard to analytics. Just to cover high level, 3 typical target audiences we're looking to target in regard to portfolios: recruiters, hiring managers, and then a third audience that I typically refer to as future peers. Recruiters, they don't know a whole lot about what you do. Their goal is just to look at job description A and then person A and then see if they can match up keywords and vocabulary from those 2 things. So that's where like adding iOS mobile UX specialist for X industry, that's where you're really going to shine in regard to recruiters trying to find the best candidate for a role. Really helps them. Hiring managers, they care way more about your case study. So they'll dive into a case study and then scroll through that. There's a potential missing section here, and that's the about section. The reason I talk about the about section is because that third target audience of future peers, these are folk that already work within the industry that will persuade hiring managers to interview you. The idea is you throw your application out there, hiring manager boils it down to like, hey, here's the top 20 candidates. Who should I interview first? And they'll talk with their coworkers. They'll talk with their coworkers and say, hey, which of these resumes should I talk with first? And those folk will look at your resume and they care less about your case studies and more about who you are as an individual. Like if I hang out with Hodo for 8 hours a day, sharing a cubicle wall with him, is he going to make my life miserable? Are they fun to hang out with? Do they have passions and enjoyments in life? So they care more about your about page. I like to use the dialogue to make your about page closer to that of like a dating profile, as silly as that sounds. They just genuinely want to know more about you as an individual. So, 3 target audiences: recruiters, hiring managers, future peers. With the addition of the value prop, we're better targeting recruiters. For hiring managers, we'd have to take a deeper look at a case study. For the future peers, the about page inclusion will help a lot there as well.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Tim, you feel like diving into a case study? Did we do the homepage?
I think we did Elisa's landing section. Now, there's going to be some advice that we give that may just conflict with the aesthetic that you're going for. And with that being sensitive, I think you need to choose your aesthetic and you gotta live by it, right? So if you're like, yeah, your advice doesn't fit the aesthetic I'm going for, uh, then choose your own path. Like your mileage may vary. But I do think that if you have a section title over here for UX interaction design, it's very small, hard to notice. And then you also have like AI UX design. You have acronym design. It's all caps. This is very hard to read. It's not very scannable. It's just one of those things that's got like like high cognitive load. Then AI voice notes workflow. Uh, I guess this is fine, but it's not communicating necessarily the value that this is one. This is an app that you've launched. It also doesn't tell me a lot about the work that you did for this. You do have this contextualizing statement here, redesigning a voice to content workflow to reduce cognitive load across iOS, iPad, Mac. And I guess that's fine. That might be a better title though, honestly. This might be a better title than this over here. And it still doesn't give me enough context to know that, like, by the way, here's our app on the App Store. Or like you're not giving yourself the anchors or the props for it, um, etc. Right? If you can speak that, if you do have the actual ability to say this is an app that is on the App Store that I helped build or did design for, or etc., that you can contextualize here. I'm not sure how much ownership you really have over it based on what you're putting forward. You do have this bar here, and there's lots of content that's very wide. I already put this in the chat, but one thing you're going to watch out for is your line length rules, which can vary a little bit. There's kind of it's a range, but in general, when something is too wide, where the heck are we? Somewhere. Okay. When things are too wide, we don't like to read it very well. Humans have trouble reading. It's like AI's notes overflow. This is a good length here. Then you get down here, users need to transform voice to publish content. Tools are overwhelming. This gets way too long for me to want to read all the way. And so I'm going to skip parts of this content. The contrast is also relatively lightweight. And with that in mind, it's hard to read a lot of this body text. I think you should lean into having this be a higher contrast. And it's okay for things to be a little bit darker so that way they're easier to scan and read, especially at speed. It's a lot of gray and a lot of beige colors. However, structure-wise, TLDR, love a good summary. Situation research finding constraints. This looks at a glance to be pretty okay. You have insight, micro experiments. Overall, like your visuals look really good. You have most of the content here. It's probably formatted in the story flow that I would recommend improving a little bit. Like instead of saying the insight, you might want to say just what is the insight, right? So instead of saying like the insight, you just say what the insight was. And you have like micro experiments. You might say like testing across multiple versions. And then I did notice that these interactions, which are very cool, that you have these mapped out here, the details are all hidden behind hover. And the selection state for this is not really super evident about which one you've chosen or why you've chosen it. I would just have this information underneath these, right? I would just make it this image, and then underneath it, even if it's the same exact shape, right? Just move this overlay here, right underneath it. So that way I can look and compare across all these. Because the key thing about anytime you want to compare something is you need to look at all the options. You see this in like purchase patterns or anywhere. When people want to make a choice, they need to see all the options in front of them in a simple way. And this prevents people by nature of being able to compare them and see the actual differences in your thought process. And this content is hard to find anyways. Like I may not accidentally discover that content ever, especially if I go from home. I might click here, and then I might like move my mouse to the side to use the scroller, and then look, this content will never be revealed to me, even though there's valuable information you have here. So
I
I
didn't
would highly
realize it was
uncover.
there.
Yeah. How do you feel about that so far? You okay with that?
Yeah, it's interesting insights. It's something I never really thought of, so it's interesting hearing that, and I think it's definitely valid. I would have to restructure that.
It's the hard part, huh? It's the building and the organization. Dude, I feel you. I feel you. I feel you tough on that. Otherwise, like you got visuals here. Colors are fine, right? Um, you have some flows here. You could use a little bit more contextualization. I think having an image, or is this a GIF? Having a GIF next to a carousel when it's such a lightweight border, like there is a color change here, but the contrast, the evidence of this is so hard to see. Like you just may need to add a little bit of like a pop here, something that lets people just go full red, bloody red, something like this. Something that helps people maybe discover it though, right? That they're able to see this is a clearly different section, and then I can use this to kind of get around and kind of move. I might recommend that, especially when you're putting interactions next to each other. This is good, especially because it's not images. We do see people who build images in here that ends up being blurry and difficult. So I think visual, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is visually very well put together. Section wise, pretty much all the right pieces. Content wise, hard to read because of contrast, difficulty of information being presented without the right signifiers, and also that like link, the stretching across of that text. And overall, I think you have a pretty good case study here. Thank.
Yeah, let me yes and with a final thought on my side here. I want to circle back to your original questions, and the original questions were what stands out and what's working well. And you're doing a lot of stuff here that does a lot of good stuff. Aesthetically, I think the thing is great. I agree with all the things Tim has said. I want to answer those questions in an adjacent way. I think your portfolio is currently best positioning you to that of a high quality UI designer. This to me looks like mid-level to senior level UI effort to me. If your goal is leaning more toward, Hodo, bring me back. Is the goal to lean more into UX or even higher elevation of product?
I think I'm looking towards UX, mainly like mid-level.
Cool, great. Yeah, if your goal is UX, then would love to see more about decision making that you've made along the way. At the moment, it feels very output oriented, as in here are the designs that I have created. A lot of stuff even kind of points a little bit more toward motion designer, which is very cool, but it sounds like it's adjacent to your goals. Would love to see more about the methods by which you understood problems and broke those problems down into the values that users are looking for and how you prioritize those values. Really easy to say at high level like that, hard to write a case study about that, but I think that's currently the missing element that would elevate from UI to UX, being more user-centric. And that's especially tough to do if your case studies are, what's the word? I don't want to say not real, because that's not true, but they are conceptual in nature. Is that, Hodo, is that the case with a couple of your case
No.
studies?
No, they are like they're all real.
Oh, great. Cool. So that's awesome. So theoretically, one would then have more access to some of that information, which is great. Hodo, how you feeling? You feel like you've got some actionables to work with?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. It's good stuff. I'm just taking it all in.
Heck yeah, man. I'm looking at the
It
clock.
is a real app. Yeah.
Sorry, come again?
I was just noticing that it's a real app on the App Store.
Yeah.
This review does look suspect to me. It's a 1 5-star review, and the caption is life changing. It just seems a little like suspicious for a single 5-star life changing review to be out there, but maybe it truly was for Jasmine Scotty life changing. What a name as well.
Dude,
No, it's
I'd buy
Hopefully,
something life changing.
because it's
yeah.
interesting because like in the App Store Connect, I see a lot more reviews, but when I go to like the App Store itself, I only see one review, so I don't really know like what's really driving that.
I don't know either. I'm not an App Store Connect expert. I've
Yeah.
worked with it a couple times. It's a pain. Congrats on getting this out, especially under your own developer license, which is very expensive. But hopefully, it is doing you good.
Tim, I've got kind of a wild observation here. Head back to the homepage and scroll down
Yeah.
to the case studies. I'm fascinated by, like, I'm looking at the AI voice notes workflow. The content on my side is mirrored. I'm seeing the textual content on the left and the image to the right, and it's not a responsive thing. Hoda, was that intentional at all? What's the background there?
Wait, I don't think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so
Put a
currently
screenshot. Put a screenshot in the chat for us.
doing it. That's a great idea. Shabam. That's what I'm currently seeing.
Oh, what?
Texture. I don't know how you did this. Is why I'm like freaking out about it. But it responds perfectly well in all responsive angles. So, like, it looks great. I'm just bewildered.
Probably a glitch. Oh no.
Oh, you've got a loading state too. Nice. Okay. All right. Hodo, thanks for your time today. We hope that this has been helpful for you. And I'm grateful we were able to go just a little bit over to help you out. We look forward to seeing you in the future if you want to make some changes, or we won't be offended if you make no changes and you're like, those guys are full of it. Don't worry, we are definitely full of it sometimes. Hopefully not
No,
today, though.
thanks. I do appreciate the feedback.
Yeah. And then I think that might be it for us today. I think that is all the time we've really had. Is who's still here? Looks like our patron saint is not currently here right now, Glaze. So I won't play our sermon since they're not here. But again, thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate your time. We appreciate the efforts that you make to participate, to hear us out, and then to also being just having the courage to like be on stage with us as we talk about this. Our goal is to help everyone. So if we've helped you a little bit, we're glad to have been valuable, and it was time well spent for us.
Really appreciate the time, everyone. I don't have any after hour topics today.
I don't think I have either. But will you go ahead and close our stream out? Will you?
I suppose go offline. Goodbye, YouTube people.